So let's say we have a form that looks something like this. This has first name, last name, email, phone number, password. This is more like a sign up form, right? So one thing that is very important in such forms, or any form for that matter, is validation. Now, what do I mean by that? So let's say inside of this email field, I type Piyush. Now this is not an email, right? So if I just go on and submit it, you're gonna see, just ignore all the other errors, but this shows that invalid email format. And now if I go on and try to do Piyush at gmail.com, and if I go on try to submit it again, you're gonna see this email error is now gone. So this is basically what a form validation is all about. And in this video, we're gonna see how we can implement custom validations on our own, and also an amazing library called Yup, which makes adding form validations 10 times easier. So let's go on and jump to our VS Code. And over here, I'm gonna open the terminal and I'm gonna initialize a new React app. So I'm gonna say npm create wheat at latest. And I'm going to press enter. So it's going to ask us the name of the folder. I'm going to press dot because I've already opened a folder called React Yup. So it's going to create it inside of this directory itself. Now it's going to ask us a framework. So I'm going to choose React and I'm going to choose JavaScript. Cool. So our React app has been initialized successfully. Let's install all of the dependencies by typing npm install. And what basically this is going to do is it's going to install all of the dependencies inside of this package.json file, like React, React DOM, and other dependencies. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to go inside of our src folder and remove the things that we don't need, like this assets folder. And inside of index CSS, I'm going to remove all of the styles. Inside of app.css, I'm going to remove all the styles and just add a body style of font family sans serif. And inside of app.js or app.jsx, I'm going to remove this state, all of these files over here, and simply I'll add one div which will say subscribe to roadside coder, which you should if you haven't yet. So let's save this, and now if I try to run this, npm run dev, let's click on this link and we can see our React app is successfully running. Now let's try to recreate that form UI that we saw at the starting of this video. So I'm going to simply create a new folder over here for components. And instead of it, I'm going to create a file which I'll say form without yup. So in this file or in this component, I'm going to implement the form validations without using any library, without using yup. So that even if you had to implement custom validations in your company, you can do that as well. So I'll say RAFCE, press enter. So I'll just name the component as form without yup. I'm going to remove this import. And if you don't know how I did that RAFCE, I have this extension over here called ES7 React Redux React Native Snippets. So you can install that and you can use this shortcut as well. So okay, let's copy this up and render it inside of app.jsx. Instead of this div, I'm going to say form without yup, import it, and cool, let's see. Yup, we can see that. Hello. Cool, now inside of this component, I'm going to get rid of this div, and instead I'm going to have a form tag which will have an on submit. On submit, it will call a function called handle submit. So this function doesn't exist yet, so let me just create it right over here. Const handle submit equals an empty function for now. Now inside of this form, I'm going to create a few fields like first name, last name. Let's just have a look. So first name, last name, email, phone number, password, and all these things. So let's just create a state for storing all of the values of these inputs, right? So I'll just import use state hook over here, which allows us to manage the state of our app, and it returns us with an array with two things. One is a variable which I'm going to call form data, and other is a set form data or a setter function which helps us to manipulate the data inside of this form data. Now let's give it some initial value as well. So I'm going to take an empty object over here, and all the fields that we just saw, I'm going to provide some initial data with respect to that, which is going to be this. So let me just close this. Yeah. First name, last name, all of these will be empty by default. Email, phone number, password, confirm password, age, gender, interests. Interests will be an array because there can be more than one interest, and the birth date. Okay, now inside of our form, let's create all of these input fields one by one. So first of all, we're gonna have for our first name, so label is going to be first name, and then we're gonna have an input field of type text. Name I'm gonna give to first name. Value, I'm gonna take form data dot first name, which we have taken from over here. So form data dot first name initial value, and some placeholder of enter your first name. So let's have a look. Yep, there we go. We can see the first name over here. Let's do the same for other input fields. So I'm gonna add for last name, same. a label and an input field. Also, let me just wrap each of these inside of our div. This one as well. Okay, below this, I'm gonna have for our email. So for email, label is going to be email, input type is going to be email, or you can keep it text as well, because anyways, we're gonna add the validation later on. Name is going to be email, value, form data.email, again taking from over here, and a placeholder, enter your email. Next, I'm gonna have for our phone number. So label is going to be phone number, input type is going to be text, name, phone number, same as first name and last name. After that, I'm gonna have password and confirm password. So simply password is going to be of type password. So whenever we type inside of this input field, we can see this. We cannot type it right now, because obviously we haven't added the on change over here. So if I just show you, if I give it some default value, and if I go back over here, yep, you can see, we can see these black dots. So okay, password similar to previous ones, just the type password, same with the confirm password as well. And we will add a validation into our confirm password that this should be same as the our entered password that you may have seen in other websites as well, right? Below this, I'm gonna have age field, label will be age, input will be type of number. This is very important because age is always going to be number, right? It can't be a letter. Name is going to be age, value, form data age, and some placeholder. Below this, let's add some checkboxes. No, not checkboxes. I think I'm gonna have gender over here. So for gender, let's add a select. So simply I'm gonna have a select tag called gender. Value is going to be form data dot gender, and inside of it, I'm gonna have some values, right? So if I go on over here, you're gonna see this is more of a drop down. I think I can remove this select gender from over here. I think it's self-explanatory from that. Yep, you can see we can select our gender from over here. Then below this, let's add checkboxes for our interests. So it's a bit long. Yeah, so label, interests, and inside of it, I'm gonna have 3 input boxes of type checkbox. If it's checked or not, I'm gonna see from our form data.interest. So this is an array, right? So I'm gonna see, does this array includes this current coding checkbox or not? So we have coding, we have sports, we have reading, so similar to each other. And the last input field I'm gonna keep is date of birth. So the reason I'm keeping all of these input fields over here, so many input fields, because these are the all possible things that you can encounter in a company, right? A lot of videos that you will see on YouTube, they will just show you email, password, and they'll just get done with it. So I don't want that. I want to show you all of these input fields. That's why I'm including this long form. So for date of birth, label will be date of birth. Input type is going to be date. Name is going to be birth date. Some value from our form data and the placeholder. And I think that's pretty much it. I'm not going to add anything else inside of it. Just one button at the very end for submitting our form. So button is going to be type submit. It's going to be called submit. Cool. This looks good. Now let's just add some bare minimum styles to it so that we have some gap between these input fields. So instead of app.css, I'm going to close, app.css, I'm going to have a form tag, or let's just give this a proper class name. So for form, I'm going to give class name of form, and I'm going to say dot form. Inside of it, I'm going to have display flex and flex direction to be column. And we're gonna include some gap between each of these. So let's say 10 pixels of gap. So if I see, yep, we can see some gap over here. And for our form, inside of it, I'm gonna go to label. And so these are the labels. So I'll just add some gap between label and the input. So I'll just say margin right to be 10 pixels. Cool. Now, first thing first, how do we change all of these input fields? Because right now we can't type it over here, right? So I'm gonna just create a simple handle change function over here, const handle change, and this will take an event. Now this handle change will provide it to all of these fields, like for example in our input field, I'm gonna say on change is gonna be handle change, and inside this handle change, it's gonna receive an event, and from the e.target or the event.target, I'm gonna receive 2 things. First, the name and the value. So name will be the this thing, first name, which is similar to what we have added inside of our state as well. So we're gonna know that, okay, we're supposed to change this first name and the value which is coming from our onChange function. So simply I'll just say set form data, and I'm gonna add an object. I'll take whatever's already inside of it. So form data, comma, and for that particular field, so I'll say name, and I've added these square braces over here because You can't just directly write name and value over here. If you want this name to be a key, you have to keep it inside of a square bracket. So cool, let's just try to go and change this PIYUSH. Okay, yeah, we're able to do that. Not able to do that for last name because we haven't added it inside of that. So I'll just take this on change and add it for each of these. For email as well, phone number, password, confirm password, age. For gender, I'm gonna add it inside this select. For this thing, for checkbox, it's gonna be different, but for our date, it's gonna be the same. So for checkbox, I'm gonna create a separate thing. I'll just create a handle change or handle checkbox change. Yeah, just add this here, over here, and in our third checkbox. And let's just go and create this function right here, right below handle change. So const handle checkbox change. This will be kind of similar to this handle change, but one difference. So instead of this name and value, I'm gonna take name and checked over here to check if the particular checkbox we are clicking on is checked or not. Now let's create a variable over here called updated interests equals, I'm gonna take all of the interests inside of our form data. So interests. So I'm just creating a backup over here so that we can make the changes to this and then push it back inside of that state. So now I'll say if the current checkbox is checked. If it's checked, then I'll say updated interests dot push this name over here. I'm gonna push that particular checkbox. Else I'll say updated interests equals updated interests dot filter. That is, we're gonna remove it from over here, right? So I'll say interest and I'll say interests not equals to name. Yep. And yeah, this is giving us error because this is const. This should be let if you want to override it. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Let's just say set form data. Let's take whatever is inside of our form data, and just add interests to be updated interests. Now in this case, we haven't added the square bracket over here because we want the name of the key to be interests, which it already is right over here. Okay, I think this should be good enough. Let's try changing all of these fields. Okay, we're able to enter some email over here, some password. Okay, age, cool. Yep, we're able to change the gender as well. Cool, this works. Everything works. Awesome. If you press on submit, it's gonna, I guess, refresh the page. Yeah, let's take care of that. Inside of the handle submit, I'm gonna say take E and I'll say E dot prevent default for preventing the default behavior. Okay, now inside of it, I'm gonna check for our validations. So I'll create a function over here, const validate form. Now this validate form is going to be the one that is going to validate and give us errors. So I'm going to take this validate form and call it right over here, and this will return as const is valid key, and I'm going to check if this is valid. If the form is valid, then I'm going to simply console log form submitted, and I'll just display form data. Else I'll say console.log form validation failed. Okay, now let's go on and create this validate form function over here. But before that, if you're preparing for your front-end interview and you would like me to help you in your front-end interview preparation, just click the link in the description down below and book a one-on-one call with me. We're going to discuss tips, tricks. I'm going to give you a lot of resources. I'm going to design a proper roadmap tailored to your situation, which is going to help you out a lot in your front-end interview preparation. So click the link in the description down below and book a one-on-one call with me. So I'm going to create a state over here for storing all of our errors inside of it. So const errors and set errors. Now I'm warning you, this function over here is going to be so long because implementing custom validations is literally a headache, and it just involves so much redundant code as well. So let me show you. If I just copy this function that I've already written over here, you'll see. So if I start from the beginning, I have this new errors object I've already initialized over here. So first of all, I'm checking if form data.firstname doesn't exist, then inside of the new errors object, I'm just gonna add this first name key and just add first name is required. Same with last name as well. Same with the form data.email. If it doesn't exist, give the error that email is required. Else, if it is existing, I'm gonna check if the email is valid or not. So if email is not valid, then I'm gonna say invalid email format, and this is valid email is not created yet. So let me show you what type of function this will be. It will look something like this: is valid email, And over here, I'm adding this regex expression, which you don't need to understand. Regex is something that everyone copies from the Google, even if it's a senior developer or a junior developer. And simply, I'm just testing, is the format of the email similar to the email regex over here? If that's the case, then it's a valid email, else I'm gonna say invalid email format. Same with our phone number as well. I'm gonna check if the number of digits inside of a phone number is 10, else I'm gonna give the error phone number must be 10 digits. So this is how a function will look like, is valid phone number, and I'm adding a regex over here, which is just checking for 10-digit phone number, and it's gonna return false if it's not 10-digit. Same for our valid password as well. First of all, it will check if password is present or not, else it's gonna check password must be at least 8 characters long, at least one symbol, one number, one lowercase letter, right? So let's add this is valid password function. And the reason why I'm moving fast over here is because I want to show you how easy these things are to do in Yup by using, a library like Yup. So let me just show you this first. So yeah, you see, is valid password. It's gonna check. First of all, it should have any of these symbols. It should have at least one number, at least one capital letter and a small letter. And then over here, simply I'm gonna check if the password's length is more than or equals to 8 and all of these criterias over here. So you see, it's such a headache for checking all of these validations. Same for our confirm password, same for our age as well. For age, simply I'm gonna have a function which is gonna look like this. And inside of it, I'm gonna check if age is more than or equals to 18 and age is less than or equals to 100. And you can see we are parsing this over here by converting, age from, if it's a string, to a number. And this is something which is also a part of Yup, and it comes inbuilt inside of Yup. And I'll show you that as well as this video moves forward. So Yup is valid age. If it's not valid, then I'm going to show you must be at least 18 years old and not older than 100 years. And similar validations for our gender, for our interests. Interest has to be more than 0. If it's 0, then at least one interest you should be having. Same with our date of birth as well. And in the end, I'm going to assign this new errors to our set errors function. And now simply in the end, I'm going to check object.keys new error. It's just checking that if there is at least one error present, then it's going to return false. So right over here. And now if I go back and I'll show you, if I go to inspect and open the console, let me just console log errors over here. So I haven't typed anything inside of this form. If I just press submit over here, you're going to see we get this object with all of these errors inside of it. Age is required, birth date is required, blah, 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 blah. So let's say if I add age over here, let's say 25, and if I submit this, you're going to see there is no age error over here. So let's just render all of these errors inside of our UI to see it better. So below each and every input field, I'm just going to simply add, if errors.firstName is there, then render that error.firstName, and it's going to have a class name of errors. And I'm going to simply do this similarly to all of others as well, like over here for our last name, for our email, for our phone number, our password. Sorry, this will be over here instead of our password. This will be over here for our confirm password. And if I go up and show you, I've added this condition over here as well, that if confirm password is not equal to the password must match. This will be the error that will be thrown. I'll render the error for the age, for this gender, and for these checkboxes as well. So I'll say interests over here. Oh, sorry, this is the birth date. So it should be over here. And over here, it should be birth date. Okay, let's go back and let's make this, first of all, let's add some styling to this. So I'll just take this error class name, add it over here. Color will be red, simple. And yep, you can see we have all of these errors over here. Let's add my name. If I press on submit now, you're gonna see that particular error is gone now. If I say my surname, yep, you see. If I enter, let's say password 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0, very simple. Oh, sorry, this is phone number. Instead of password, I'm gonna keep the same, and just in confirm password, I'm gonna remove the last digit so that these are not same. So if I submit it, so you see, first of all, it's giving us this error, password must be 8 characters long, contain one symbol, blah, blah, blah. And this is giving us this password should match. So you see, this is how the custom validations look. And you can implement validations by using this long process, or you can use something like yup, which I'm about to show you right now. Now, if you're enjoying this tutorial up until this point, open your Instagram app right now and search Roadside Coder and hit that follow button as hard as you can, because I'm very active on Instagram, and if you have any doubts, any queries, or just a normal message, you can ping me on Instagram for this. So go on, do it. I'm waiting. What? I'm being serious over here. Open your Instagram app right now and follow me there. Oh, you've already done it? Okay, let's move on with this video. So first of all, let's go to Google and search React Yup. And over here, let's open this npm package. Okay, let's install Yup. So it's simply npm install Yup. So I'll just have a terminal. Inside of the terminal, I'm gonna kill the server and say npm install Yup. Now, meanwhile this is installing, let's just duplicate our component. Let's just say form with yup. I'm gonna name the component as well, form with yup, and instead of this I'll just render that. Cool. Now we're gonna make changes to this, and I'll show you how you can transition from that previous custom validations to yup validations. If something like this, some requirement like this comes into your company, you can easily migrate your code. So let's just say npm run dev, and let me show you how easy it is to use yup. So if I go to the documentation, and you can see we have created this schema over here, which just defines what is the criteria for each and every field. So for example, for our name should be a string, right? Self-explanatory. It should be a string, and it is required as well if the user has not entered it. So you might remember we have added these conditions over here. Let me just close it. Yeah, we have added these conditions over here that if form data doesn't exist, if last name doesn't exist, so we don't have to add these conditions anymore. We can just say dot required. That's it. Same for other fields as well, which we will go on and write for each and every field for our code as well. And then simply we're gonna say await user schema dot validate, and I'm gonna provide it the data over here, and it's gonna validate the data, and it's gonna return us a promise, because this is an asynchronous function. And then we can easily check, we can handle the errors as well. In fact this handles the errors for us right out of the box, which I'm gonna show you. So let's just go on right over here inside of our code, and I'm not gonna need any of these, so let's just get rid of all of this redundant code. So you see right now our code base is 281 line. Let's see how much we can reduce that. So first of all, let's just remove all of these custom validations over here. It's way too much. Okay, instead of this validate form, I'm not gonna need that. I'm just actually gonna remove everything inside of over here. And yup. Now first thing is to import yup. So I'll just say import star as yup. So I'm gonna import everything from yup over here, from yup. So what you can do instead of this is you can have a curly brace, and you can just import things from here like string required or whatever. But I'm just taking everything over here from yup, and I'm gonna name it yup. So now over here right below our error state, I'm gonna create a const validation schema. Just like you saw there was a user schema, I'm gonna create a validation schema, and I'll say yup dot object, because this is an object, right? And inside of this I'm gonna provide it an object. And now here for each and every field I'm gonna provide the validation. So first of all, our first name. So our first name was string, so I'll say yup dot string. So it has to be a string, obviously. It has to be required as well. And if it's not required, so see right here we can just throw the error right away. So if it's not present, if the user has not provided us with the first name, I can throw whatever error I want over here. So let's say if I say first name is required, that's it. If this doesn't meet the criteria, it will just throw the error that first name is required. Similarly, let's write it for last name as well. For our email, so email, it's going to be different. So email. And do you remember we had to write that ugly regex code? Right now I'll show you, it's so much easier. So I'll say it has to be string. Yep, that's fine. And it has to be required. Yep, email, it has to be required. So I'll say email is required. And right before this, I'll just say it has to be an email. And if it's not an email, I'll just say invalid email format. Or you know what, I can move it probably to over here. Yep, that's better. But there can be such scenarios where you have to add some regex as well, right? Like for example, in our phone number. So I'll just say phone number and I'll say yep dot string. Yep, it has to be a string. And I'll say matches. So matches will simply take a regex expression. So I'll just add a regex for our phone number, which is going to be this, that it has to have 10 digits. And if it's not the case, I can throw an error over here that phone number must be 10 digits, right? What else? This has to be required as well. We need this. After that, for our password, now let's see. So if you remember, if we go back over here, we had this ugly looking code. Where did it go? Yeah, such a long code. And we had all of these regex expressions, right? So now we already know it's so easy to write regex inside of this. So I can simply say password and I'll say yep dot string. First of all, it has to be a string. Then it has to be required. If it's not present, I'll say password is required. Then first of all, I want this to be minimum 8 digit long. So you see, yeah, we had this password dot length more than or equals to 8, right? So I'll say minimum 8 digit long. And if it's not the case, I'll just give it an error of password must be at least 8 characters. And then it's going to be very similar to what we've added over here. But over here, you see, if we had to give error for each and every of these, that's not possible. I mean, it is possible, but you'll have to add, if else, if else, if else over here. But here, we can add separate errors for all of these. So simply see, I'm going to say dot matches and it should have at least one symbol. So I'll just add regex over here and I'll throw the error if it's not satisfied. Same with our, at least one number, at least one uppercase, at least one lowercase. So yep, that's for our password. Let's see for our confirm password. So confirm password. So basically confirm password needs to be same as this password, right? So I'll say yep dot string dot one off. Now this one off is useful for comparing it with this password. So I'll just simply say yep dot ref and I'll just add password over here. So I'm adding the reference to this password key inside of this yep object. So I'm saying it has to be same as this. If it's not same, I'll say passwords must match. And over here you can in this one off you can add more values over here that this confirm password should match those values. But in this case, we're only going to need this passwords value. And also this is required. So if it's not present, then I'll say confirm password is required. Now next, for our age, this has to be a number. If it's not a number, then I'm going to say type error, age must be a number. And age has to be minimum 18 and less than 100. So I'll simply say min to be 18. If it's not, then you must be at least 18 years old. If it's more than 100, you cannot be older than 100 years. And this is required as well. So age is required. Next, simply for our gender, I'm going to say it has to be a string and it has to be required. Okay. For our interests, it has to be an array. So yep dot array. And minimum, it has to have at least one interest or one single option. And it is required. Yep. And at last, for our birth date, it has to be a type date. So that is also inbuilt inside of the yep. So I'll say yep dot date and it has to be required. So yep, you saw how easy it is to add validations inside of over here by using yep. So let's see how we can use this inside of our handle submit. So inside of our handle submit, I'm going to say a try catch block because as I already mentioned, this is a promise. So I'll say await, and since we're using await over here, we're supposed to use asynchronous since it's a promise that we are dealing with over here. So I'll say validation schema dot validate as I showed you in the documentation as well. And I'm going to provide it the form data. And this takes a second parameter of an object, which takes a bunch of different things, which I'm going to say abort early. So I'm going to keep it false because what it does is as soon as it encounters the first error, it just, returns and it does not throw any more errors. It just breaks the promise. So we want to see all of the errors inside of our validation schema, if any. Right. So yeah, that's cool. If it's successful, I'm going to say console log form submitted and I'll just render the form data over here. And inside the errors, so we're going to get bunch of errors over here. So if I say console log errors, so let's go back and see. So sorry, it's going to be error. If I press submit, you're gonna see we have bunch of different errors over here, like 16 errors, but we have to format this so that we can read it. So where did it go? Instead of the handle submit, I'm gonna say error dot, it has something called inner. So now if I just press on submit again, you're gonna see now this gives us this validation error array with each of the object containing the information about each of these input fields. So let's say, for example, this one has the error for first name. So see, first name is required. Okay, cool. So what I'll simply do is error dot inner, I'll take this and first of all I'll say const new errors, just like we were doing earlier, and I'll just populate it. I'll say error dot inner dot for each. I'm gonna loop through it. I'll take each and every error and simply I'll say new error, and service I'm gonna get error dot path. So if I go back, okay, I have removed that, I guess. Yeah, see, inside of it we have a path. Yep, you see, path is first name. So for first name, I'm gonna say error dot path. The value will be the actual error, that is this one, or this message over here. So I'll say error dot message, and yeah, I think that should be pretty much it. After that, I'm going to say set errors, the state that we previously created over here, to be new error, or I think it should be new errors. That's much better. And yeah, let's see if I try to submit it now. Awesome, we can see all of these errors. Now let's test it out. So if I just enter my name and let's say for our password, I'm gonna say 1 2 3 4 5 and submit. So see, it's giving us that password must contain at least one lower letter. Okay, let's add a lower letter Q. Submit. At least one upper letter. Okay, let's add capital Q. Submit. Yep, you see it's asking us it should have at least one symbol as well. Let's add a symbol and submit. Yep, now it's gone. So we have successfully added the validation for all of these, and you can go on and test for all of these as well. Like this should have a 10-digit phone number. This is required. Age must be between 18. Like if I say 12 over here, submit, you must be at least 18 years old. If I say 112, you cannot be older than 100 years, right? If it's something like 19, it's gonna be fine. It's not gonna throw any error, right? So this is how you can go on and add validations by using Yup, and you saw how easy it was. Now, one thing that I mentioned, that you can cast some values, that if it's let's say string, you can cast it to become a number. So for example, if I show you, let's take a dummy data over here. So before we submit this, let's say I have this object which we have entered as values, and see, inside of this age is a string, but we want that with respect to this validation schema, I want this to be converted to a number, right? So what we can simply do here is I'll say const parsed user to be validation schema dot cast. We can use this cast over here. You can provide this non-parsed object. Now simply let's console log this, and I'll say non-parsed and parsed user both over here. And now see, if I try to submit it over here, now you're gonna see, just forget about these errors. First object was non-parsed, it had age of 18 with the string, and in the second one you can see the age is a number. Now it doesn't have those string inverted commas right over here, and it did it with respect to this validation schema that we have already created, right? And if you go inside of our documentation of Yup, you're gonna find bunch of different things inside of it, and I would highly recommend you to go and explore more about it. Like if we saw that we have this min max function for arrays, for our date as well. Date can be minimum or maximum. You can add validations over here. So this has literally bunch of different things that you can explore over here, which I would highly recommend you to go and do. So yep, that's pretty much it. If you like this video, give this video a huge fat thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more such awesome tutorials.